Duncan and the Old Mine. It was summertime on the island of Sodor, and Duncan was excited. Today, he was going to take a group of vacationers to see Coldy Caves. But Sir Topham Hatt had some bad news. The machines at the main coaling plant have broken down, he boomed. Duncan, Rusty, I need you two to get coal up in your mine in the hills. Then Thomas will take them to the coaling plant. And, Sir Topham Hatt added, Bertie the bus will take the vacationers to Coldy Caves. Duncan was very disappointed. He wanted to go to Coldy Caves and have an adventure. As Duncan was slowly puffing to the mine, he noticed an old lion branching off into the trees and bushes. That looked like a good place for an adventure, thought Duncan. I wonder what's down there. So Duncan pushed his way through the barrier. Duncan clattered along the old line. Eventually, the line disappeared into a tunnel. It looked like the entrance to an old mine. This is better than caves any day, Duncan wished excitedly. Duncan puffed inside. Duncan was too excited to think clearly. He puffed straight into a roof support. Suddenly, the roof collapsed behind him. Duncan was trapped. No, cried Duncan. How am I going to get out? Meanwhile, Thomas and Rusty were waiting for Duncan at Nafford Station. Where is Duncan? Asked Thomas. I don't know, replied Rusty. I better go look for him. It was very dark in the old mine. Duncan didn't like it at all. He noticed a small shaft of light. Maybe if I whistle somebody will hear me, he thought to himself, and he gave one loud toot of his whistle. But Rusty didn't hear Duncan's whistle. He was too far away. No one knows where I am, wished Duncan. I'll have to find my own way out. Eventually, Duncan ran into a set of buffers. Duncan could go no further. I'm going to be stuck here forever, Duncan wished sadly. Eventually, Rusty reached the siding where Duncan had broken the barrier. I guess Duncan went on his adventure after all, Rusty chuffed. Then Rusty reached the entrance of the mine, where the roof had collapsed. Duncan must be inside, Rusty huffed. But how am I going to get him out? Duncan was still trapped. He nervously puffed backwards and forwards. He biffed the buffers again, but this time it made a rolling noise. Those aren't regular old buffers, chuffed Duncan. They're freakers! And he continued pushing. But the way out was boarded up. Must think clearly, Duncan huffed to himself. So Duncan pulled back and charged at the wall at brute force, and finally made it out. I did it! I did it! Cheered Duncan. Rusty heard Duncan's whistle. He puffed as fast as he could. Eventually, Rusty finally found Duncan. "Where were you?" he asked. "I went on an adventure," puffed Duncan. Just then Rusty noticed something. Duncan was pushing trucks full of coal. And so the two puffed across the island with the coal trucks. Eventually, the two engines finally arrived at Knapford Station. Thomas was very glad to see them. So was Sir Topham Hatt. Duncan told Sir Topham Hatt all about his adventure. Sir Topham Hatt told Duncan he was very lucky. Duncan shouldn't have broken the barrier. "Adventure can be full of surprises," Sir Topham Hatt told him. "Some good, some not so good." "Yes, sir," huffed Duncan. "Next time I want to have an adventure, I'll remember to think clearly."
He's the cheeky one.
James!
His fame had lots of fun.
Percy!
Pulls a mail on time.
Gordon!
Thunders down the line.
Emily!
Really knows her stuff.
Henry!
Toots and huffs and puffs.
Edward!
Wants to help and share.
Toby! Well, let's say he's square. Friends, the two, the four, the six, the eight, shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue, they're the really useful crew. All with different roles to play, round Tidmouth sheds so far away. Down the hills and round the bends, Thomas and his friends.
Must think clearly, must think clearly.